Here's the demo, me playing the game. Currently, got rudimentary casting. I've got the game environment set up and stuff, right? You can see a bobber. There's a slight issue with the bobber not properly appearing and disappearing in time, so you can see it reels in there. It's supposed to disappear when you start reeling in. But yeah, that's basically the game. I'll let it keep playing. Using Unity, because Unity has some OpenVR or XR plugins, basically, which makes it easy to develop for all the different VR platforms. It's kind of semi-open source as well, which is nice. Issue, there's some documentation. I tried looking through it, and it's very, I don't know, to me at least it's minimal documentation, and then every time I try to use something from a tutorial online, or even a tutorial online from 6 months ago, it said the stuff in it was oh, it's deprecated, you can't use that. So I'm oh, okay, cool. What else can I try? I gotta look around for an hour trying to figure out this interaction thing, trying to get it to make it so you can detect trigger. Like a trigger press while driving, especially in a C-sharp script. Figured it out, but it took a little bit. And yeah, I don't know, it's just a little confusing. Very little documentation. As far as I can tell, not really updated very frequently. Other than that, Unity is not too bad to develop in. It's pretty simple to get stuff up and running. C-sharp's pretty easy, especially with Unity. You're just going to have two functions: the start function, which is when you start the game, and an update function, which is called every frame. Yeah, what I'm trying to do, so that's the basic game. You can reel in a fish, you can cast, you can catch the fish after a certain amount of time. It's like a check, and it does a percentage chance every 1 second, or I think 3 seconds actually. There's 1 second and it waits 2 seconds, it does another check. Yeah, and then you can grab the fish off the lure, you throw it into a bucket, and it ups the counter and deletes the fish. I don't really have a gameplay loop, but I was thinking maybe I could use that counter to do something in the future. So within the next week, I'm hoping to do movement of the player, which should be fairly easy. I want to fix the bobber, which is just moving some scripts around, so that way it's not, I'm doing a call to this script that calls to this script, basically imagine calling to one server and that server calling somewhere else, and you have to wait for all that to come back, which is why it's slow. I want to add some more stuff, make the world look a little better. And then I want to make the fish different sizes, so it's not just the same fish model. So you can catch different fish, it'll just be the same fish model, just stretched and warped in different ways. I'm hoping I can get some pretty goofy fish out of that. That's about it. Any questions on what I'm doing?
What inspired you to make this project?
I was in the VR, I was in capstone class, we was talking about different projects, and I was you know what, I've been playing this game called boat fishing recently. Just on the side, while I'm watching YouTube or something. That's pretty fun. I also like fishing, and I really enjoy VR games. I'm sure that could be a capstone project, just making a fishing VR games. I'm sure no one's really done a VR game before in the school, so it'll be interesting, and also get to learn something new. Get to learn how to develop in Unity, learn maybe some of the quirks of VR stuff, maybe some of the stuff that's in the background.
Is this the first VR game you've ever made?
Yes.
Okay.
I've made one game in Unity before, back in high school, but I wouldn't really call that a game. It was more of a demo of what you can do in Unity almost.
Mm-hmm.
I just had a little thing moving on screen, that was pretty much it. So, yeah.
So what were your biggest challenges in this?
The biggest challenges for me personally, just getting started on the project is the hardest part. Like honestly, I think that's probably the hardest part about anything. For me at least, it's like getting started, because once you get started, it's like you get into a flow state, you start doing stuff, and then you look at the time, it's like, oh, 5 hours passed, where'd the time go? But getting started is the hard part. In terms of like technical stuff, like learning how to use Unity and how to like mess around with all the different, I guess, plugins and stuff, I guess was the hardest technical part. Like learning how to use the OpenXR calls, because there's like a bajillion different calls for each different little asset thing. And like all of them do like one super specific thing slightly different than this other super specific thing. So it's kind of like figuring out which one you actually need. I think that's probably the hardest technical thing, but overall the hardest thing is just getting started in the first place. Once you get started, that's like the hardest part, getting started.
In terms of like fishing, do you plan to have like varying difficulties? So like maybe some fish are harder or easier?
Yes. I don't know. I haven't quite figured it out yet. I've gotten the idea, I know how to do the different size fish and stuff, but I was also thinking of changing the color. I don't know how to do that. I was gonna look into it, but I would assume it's just when I spawn the fish in, select a random color basically. So maybe I can make it so certain colors spawn less frequently, and then when they do spawn, we get to do a little mini game challenge or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's the only way I can think of to make it like harder to fish certain fish, or maybe like certain fish only spawn certain areas or something. You need to find the area.
Would you throw in some other like wildlife, like catch an alligator or a shark, or maybe even a Loch Ness monster?
With combat system? Yeah, combat system. That's beyond the scope of a capstone project. If I keep working on it past like this and graduation, that could certainly be something, and maybe that would be like a game people would actually want to play. Personally, I would think people would rather have multiplayer before that, because at least to me, like fishing alone is just kind of boring. But when you're fishing with someone, you're talking about stuff, you're shooting the shit, you're just hanging out. That's a lot more fun than just doing something alone. So I think multiplayer would probably be, if I like had to like have a list of extra things that I could add to make the game way more fun, multiplayer would be like number one.
Heck yeah.